Hello, comic fans, investors, and whatnot.
Mostly
Here we are
investors.
again with with the big cigars, the big guys, and the lady for a special comic book buying commerce. However, here we have lahrasa, and from Portland, Comic City, Damien, aka Sleepy
Hey.
Reader, and Terence, aka the Big Money Man, and here's Milan, aka Earl Grey. And yeah, like almost each week, we meet here and talk about comics and have fun with each other. So, we usually talk maybe sometimes about TV series and movies that I usually haven't seen or almost never have seen, but maybe is there something in the pipeline in that regard?
I watched just the Marvel TV show, the typical, the kind of what if things, which actually honestly doesn't not as entertaining as I was predicting. But the last one with Black Panther, I don't know what the hell is going on. Maybe just because I know the guy is already departed, but every single time there's Black Panther, it's just like shivers like while watching it. I enjoyed the episode. I was like thinking, wow, they, like what they were showing basically was T'Challa was killed by what's this bad guy's name? I forgot now. Bloody hell. I always do forget this kind of details. Oh, wait. Yeah, Killmonger. Exactly. So he gets killed. Killmonger is basically the cheese of the whole show, basically, is the main character who is portrayed in here. And then what would happen if he would save Iron Man? That's what basically what if was. But it's very much of like movie-based story, like What If, which is okay, I guess, but would be nice to be having a little bit more snippets of like comic books. That's what we talk mostly and what I'm interested in. So it's good entertainment, but nothing. I don't know what Comickkrakk thinks. I don't know if you watched it. Terence, did you watch it?
We're behind 2 episodes, so I haven't kept up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we are going to watch them, but I just haven't kept up.
The one I'm looking forward to the most is comic-based TV show we're talking about is Why the Last Man. Because I recently now read it, so I'm okay with everything now. It's like, okay, I read it, so now I can hate it. Because usually what happens, I read a matter, I hate TV show, or hopefully I'm mistaken, but will be interesting because now Brian Kane won because of Why Last Man is everywhere. People just like sagaing now everything. Everybody remind themselves about saga and stuff like that, what he was doing before. So it will be interesting. I think it's already in States, to be honest. Is it or
I think so, but I really have strongly mixed feelings about reading things or watching things that I've already read. I almost prefer to watch the ones I haven't read. It just muddies the water in my brain or something. And I'm still basically watching things with my daughter, and then when she goes to sleep, I read. So I don't know what level they're going to do Why the Last Man, but I assume at a level that would be too intense for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I just read. I forgot the name of the monkey, to be honest.
Was it something out of Shakespeare? Yorick?
Yes, Yorick.
No, Yorick is Why the Last Man.
No, yes, Yorick is the Why, but
and what was the monkey?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's a really good read. So anybody who hasn't read Why the Last Man, you should go read it. It's absolutely gives you like a page turner, as you call it, because it does really want. Yeah, you want to know exactly what's happening, and it doesn't. It's not Walking Dead. Let's say this way. It doesn't let you wait until like boom explode somewhere. It actually gives you quite a lot of heartfelt feelings, because it goes harsh way as well, but interesting way of ending it as well.
And it seems a good.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was skipping on, so you go ahead. You had something to say about Why
it seems a good choice just to make a movie out of that or a TV series, because it's really strong story-wise, I would say. Otherwise, I just wonder which comic series with certain success isn't made into a TV series or a movie nowadays. I think almost, I'm not too much, generally speaking, I'm not too much of a fan of constantly making stuff into movies or TV series. Because
absolutely hate Preacher, for example. Preacher in the comic book is way too tame, the TV show, for comic book itself. The comic book itself is...
But how do you want to do that as a TV series? I mean,
just do it. Don't be afraid. I know it's very religious, and that's where you have to draw the line. And I think there's lots of, especially in some parts of the, like, let's say USA, there are some people would really absolutely hate it to watch that kind of stuff, because you're not supposed to spread wrong word, and especially how the world Ellis takes that Preacher series. It's like, whoosh, man. That would be like, even
speaking
Vatican
against religion is our biggest taboo over here.
Yeah. I think Vatican would even mention that if they would actually gone there, because there's a Pope in there mentioned, like, or like all those hierarchy religious beings, whatever they called. They would be probably up its, but it's just such a mistake, like, just don't make that show then, kind of thing, I guess.
I think then what they should look at making into a series is maybe it could be a mini series, The Tales from the Leather Nun, the underground comic. Let's go full bore. If we're gonna go against the church and religion, let's just go all the way, is my opinion.
I think Canadian broadcasting will have to make that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea to invest your fresh money into.
Yeah.
I'll work on it. I actually had an idea to do like a kind of anthology short that would be based on some of the more kind of, at the time, and even now, like, well, maybe not now so much, but some of these short underground stories I think would be great for kind of like an anthology short film. There's some really good stuff, like with Harold Head and stuff. There's some really good stories in there that I think would be very interesting to see, because some of the messaging that they had back in the 60s and 70s obviously is still kind of talked about now. And I think that would be very cool to kind of see that kind of anthology and see how it would play in modern day. Because I think some of it would still really push the boundaries, especially nowadays. I think that would be something worth looking into, but it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
I was told not to.
That's a pity, actually. Who wants to start with comics?
You gentlemen, go on. The bottom,
Okay,
bottom row.
I'll start.
Okay, Damien.
So the most interesting and maybe or maybe not the most odd thing I got and kind of read is the Unseen Jack Cats, which was a Kickstarter project done by Liam Sharp, the artist who I only know from doing DC Comics. He claims he and Jack Katz are spiritual brothers who both push the boundaries, but I only know Liam Sharp's work from DC. So it's an odd volume. It has just sort of odds and sods in it, just a bunch of random pieces, and it doesn't always fully explain. Like, I kind of, through reading the introduction and this lengthy interview with him, I kind of picked up some of the pieces of what's going on here. Earl, could you switch me to my camera, my other camera?
Yeah.
Might as well just show off the art as best we can. So what they do in some of the cases is give you the original pencils. And then here is inks. In this case, inks by different people. This case, Mike Perkins, who I think is he the one currently doing Swamp Thing? And he's done a lot of work for Marvel in the past. So apparently, if I understand the material right, Jack Katz, after he did the First Kingdom, was in discussions with DC to do a series called The Imaginator. And he's like this hippie backpacker who comes along and tells people stories. So here's an intro thing for The Imaginator where he comes up, and there's just odd things. Like, he comes up to this group of backpackers, I believe that's what they are, and he he's talking to them and he says, first tell me about yourselves. And the next thing you know, he's talking to this guy and he says, she seems so hurt, may I? It's just odd. And then we get the first story that would have been in the Imaginator's thing. So it would have been like House of Mystery or something, right? Except that the host is this wandering backpacking hippie. So and it's a very good. It's called The Haunted Painting, and it's kind of a beautifully rendered but standard, short horror story from DC at the time, with this guy who comes to burglarize this old man, and with a backstory of how everyone was in love with the old man's wife, including the guy who painted the painting, and apparently the old man killed his wife and the painter to keep them from running off together. And then the woman comes out of the painting, kisses the would-be burglar, and kills him. And that's the story. So, I don't know what that has to do with hippies backpacking. And then another one is this sort of odd romance called Second Chance. So I don't know if this was meant to be in the Imaginator also. This woman is a ballet instructor, and this guy's in love with her, but she had a tragic love before. This person who she broke up with him, and then he died in a car accident, so she never wants to love again.
I must say the art is so stunning for me. I love it.
The art is amazing, and the stories are kind of, they're like 1960s or early 70s stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read all of that, but then I hit this thing and I haven't read it yet, and there's no explanation for it. It's called Kingdom Artemis Rises. And maybe if I had finished reading the First Kingdom, I would see how this connects to it. Let me see. I suppose, Ray Bradbury's The Illustrated Man is a that Gore was just mentioning is kind of a text for these kinds of books, right? Where you have something, a framework for telling stories. So this Kingdom Artemis Rises is inked by a different artist on every page.
Whoa.
And some of them are names I know, like Andy Lanning, Michael Cho, Liam Sharp. But a lot I don't know. Raphael Cannon, I think I recognize that name. Bill Sienkiewicz has an incredible page.
Not bad.
So they say, that someone's on page 8, but there's no page numberings here. So I'm flipping back and forth, counting pages, trying to figure it out.
Wow.
So this is the Michael Cho page, and that looks really cool.
You can see. Yeah.
He has a very distinctive. So I like, even though it kind of covers up the original art in a way, I like the more distinctive stuff. This is a Liam Sharp inked page, which gives it almost a Bernie Wrightston look to me.
Yeah, it does.
And let's see. Yeah, sorry, if I'm flipping through too fast, but I'm just trying to figure out who any of these inkers are. This, I believe, is the Sienkiewicz page. Is it?
It does look.
No, it's not the Sienkiewicz page. I'm sorry. I don't know whose page that is.
That's kind of bad designing, even though they work so long about it.
I know. Well,
small details.
Yeah. So all of this was put together by Liam Sharp, and he's a very good artist. But it might have been good to have a more experienced editor of art books or something to work on it.
Maybe they didn't. That's why we did Kickstarter.
This is the Sienkiewicz, I believe. So that looks nice. But so I enjoyed flipping through it, but so far, because some pages are beautiful and some are ugly, I just wasn't immediately drawn into. Did we lose Terrence?
Yeah, he's coming back.
Oh, okay, because he's my First Kingdom buddy. One of our early team ups was a thing on First Kingdom, and then there's no explanation for this. A bunch of like portfolio plates about the First Kingdom. And, oops, what happened? Am I still there?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can see you.
Let me see. So I don't know. Like this one says Jack Katz 1980. And then here, obviously, someone's done a painted version of it. But I don't know who or what is the story there. And then these other ones say they're plates. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but in the early to mid 70s, one way artists made money outside of comics, but based on their comics fame, was to sell these limited print portfolios. And so that's what I think this is, but they don't explain it. We got plate number 2. And this is incredible art. I mean, Jack Katz is an amazing artist. Now, whether he's a good writer or not is another question. But and for those who don't know, Jack Katz dropped out of commercial comics inspired by underground cartoonists and spent like 15 years on this 1,000-page graphic novel called The First Kingdom. And then apparently after that, he started teaching painting at a university in California, but now he is back to doing graphic novels, and he has an unpublished 500-page graphic novel.
Whoosh.
So this stuff, a lot of it is the closest thing one can think of is to William Blake. He's sort of like a William Blake who was inspired somehow by Prince Valiant and Hal Foster type of comic strips. And then there's these random pencil drawings. I guess it's just random stuff that must have been laying around that was never used. So it's a very odd collection, but it's interesting enough. I'm glad I backed it, especially because I think Jack Katz has almost no money. But I kind of hope that they'll kickstart his unpublished 500-page graphic novel, although they have samples of the pages back in the back, which I'll get to. And those look unreadable, but I'd still buy it for the art.
It's a pity that you use only like on Kickstarter, because now seeing this actually you flipping through page, I would love to see it in the bookshop and actually be able to pick it up, because that's it opens up media. Like it opens people's eyes to see what actually the person done it. Like looking in this art, I can see why Liam Sharp is kind of buddies with him, because it almost have the same feel of the comic book and how they render the page, which is absolutely amazing.
And Liam Sharp is a visually very intense artist, and so obviously is Jack Katz. That's a good point, Rasa. And so here is one page. I mean, I don't know what it's from or what it is. Maybe it's from. So he did a 500-page unpublished graphic novel, and they say he's in the middle of a planned 333-page graphic novel. And another point to make is he's still doing this stuff, and he's age 93.
Whoosh.
So there's someone into this. There's a signature here what looks like an M and a C, maybe. MC21 inking Jack Katz. So I don't know who that is.
Well, at least, I know it's not perfect, this graphic novel, by the look of it. There's some details they're missing out, but I think it's still good that they actually managed to do that, and everybody was supporting them.
Right.
That.
And it's weird when you do a Kickstarter, you really don't know what it's going to look like until you get it. So it is really nice to have things out on bookshelves where people can explore them and fall in love with something when they pick it up.
Yeah.
So here are random pages from this completed 500-page graphic novel called Beyond the Beyond. This one says it's page 8. And I've tried reading bits of this stuff, and we're really in the realm of crazy outsider artist. So, I mean, in my heart of hearts, they would get someone to rewrite this for him. But I would still buy the 500-page graphic novel just to explore it.
It kind of feels very Meta Baron kind of type of because maybe the bald heads and all that kind of like a feature, like. And
and it's this expansive science fiction vision of his.
Yeah.
So like that was page 8. Then it's page 13, page 16. So I don't know what the rhyme or reason behind. Would it have made more sense? Are these pages that Liam Sharp in particular liked, or Jack Katz in particular liked and wanted to show off? Because given that it's already very hard to read, just reading these random pages, this is page 32. I think it is in some way connected to First Kingdom. Or maybe it's just a lot of visual similarity to First Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
But this is amazing work for a 93-year-old man.
Yep.
But this obsessive filling the page to the last square centimeter, it's really outsider art.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Have you-
it's someone who started his career in commercial comics in, I think, 1946 or so. And he's still doing it, but he's become a crazy outsider.
Have you really finished the First Kingdom? Because
No, I read the first 2.5 volumes.
But
I bought them all, and I intend someday to go back. But it's more inspiring for its scope than its readability, and this looks like it pushes that aspect even further. So,
If
if
you go back far enough in the archives that Damien has put together, you will eventually come to a video of me and Damien talking about Last Kingdom. So many. I don't even know how long ago.
I think that might have been one of our first live videos together.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and we loved it, but it was a hard read. But he's an amazingly good artist, and he's not. You have to admire his desire to just do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, someone has to pay for doing your own thing. I think his second wife had a good job at the university as some kind of administrator at the university to pay for all this.
Mm-hmm.
But they are divorced. There's a afterword by her saying they're now just friends. What a fascinating, awesome journey I've shared with Jack Katz for 48 years. First as his wife of 26 years, and in subsequent years as a close friend. It's wonderful to celebrate with him this book, a tribute to his life and career, while he is still healthy and halfway through his next graphic novel at age 93. So yeah, they don't have a name for the graphic novel he's currently working on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of wild to think that there's this completed 500-page graphic novel that is just sitting somewhere. So hopefully the success of this Kickstarter will encourage them to kickstart the other graphic novel and maybe get someone to get it in print. You would think one of the smaller publishers could make enough money from a nice hardback to sell to people like me and Terrence.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was my most interesting
Nice.
read of the week.
So, who wants to continue? Rasa, do you?
Oh, okay. I can. So we were just talking about Richard Corbin, and then so I went into heavy metal, whatever. I don't have any, unfortunately.
That's a classic cover, though.
Yeah, I started discovering it quite late, to be honest, and then it became quite sometimes you find a lot, but all the same, and the ones which is more popular, of course, you can't. So. And I was, but funny enough, I was lucky. I guess they start at the beginning of the story, but of course, it's no end because it's heavy metal magazine, and then they come ongoing monthly. So, but talking about Corbin, I was reading this. It's a Sinbad in the land of the Jinn, and then it's actually very short, but I was fascinating to look at. How like the backgrounds and the coloring wasn't absolutely amazing. And here I would like to have seen more details of this city they were passing by. But apparently this is a story of Sinbad, and is not happy because there's this guy who is basically taking over. Oh yeah, it's basically, I'll tell you, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. This is the last page, so you don't have much of the story, but it was kind of interesting to look at the Corbin itself, which is the beginning. I got into those couple of pages and I turn and I don't see any more. I was like, oh, I forgot I'm reading actually heavy metal. I shouldn't expect to have it from the beginning until the end. So anyway, there is this bad guy. Somebody wants to take and this girl here, she's basically helping him in his journey. And basically that's it, what I found out. That's not much. But also, because it's heavy metal, of course, there is this, which is Airtight Garage. of Jerry Cornelius by Mobius, and it's absolute stunner to look at. And of course, once again, unfortunately, that's not much of story to read, but it's absolutely stunner to look at. And it's like kind of disappointing because it's like 4 pages, and then you have another story now from other artists. So it was good to see. Honestly, I was actually looking to purchase the book online, just on eBay, to check how much is the other one. This one itself, in the good quality, is actually £20 on eBay. Somebody asked, and the other one afterwards is like I can't even find it sometimes. So yeah, I'm kind of disappointed because I wanted to read more. But this is just me wandering through the whatever heavy metal. I guess I get inspired by you guys. You keep on talking about stuff like the Corbins and all that other type of the comic books you can read. I'm finished, by the way, already. I'm not going to show anymore.
Oh, okay.
So it's just was interesting to look at. I mean, of course, it gave me a taste of what I would like to have more of it, because it just would be so fascinating to actually read the whole story of that Sinbad of Jinn. Especially, I was getting into more of the Corbin art and stuff. Oh, there you go. He has the whole collection, of course. What I'm talking about, eh? You can get collected.
I think that's an impossible thing to find in English.
Yeah, I bet.
That's wait. So here, I got this really early. Actually, I was 15 or so, and it was quite a feat to get this out of the shop. I thought, why when they stopped me getting this book here? But it's just the cover here looks amazing, and it's a totally an underground publisher, the same publisher that published all the Corbin stuff and so on, but really a one-man army actually, and yeah, beautiful book. It's just a part of a bigger cycle of stories, like you can imagine.
And then, of course, you have this pages like that, which is absolutely fantastic to look at in magazine format. So I would definitely want to, like every single time I remember going to the shop just to check whatever cheapest. I always bought the cheapest heavy metal, like on the back issues. But it's always the ones you want, like Mobius one, the Corbin's one, the all other ones, and you all like Droulet, all that stuff. It's like, oh, okay, you want way too much for it. And it's like, because like sometimes I can't invest completely on it. When I'm curious about it, I want to get some. When I'm not, like I can like always remember, but it's always fascinating to look at, and this cover is amazing. And the snippets of the stories is great, but it's just frustrating, especially if you don't have something after to read.
yeah. I have started
the version I've been looking for a while, and it is out there, but it is really hard to find. And when I see it, it's incredibly expensive. I don't remember who published the English version. I want to say it was his Fantagor, but I don't know that to be 100% true. But from what I've seen, it's really difficult to get your hands on.
Yeah, I think I made a search shortly after his death and could not find that one for sale anywhere.
I see. It's just gives you a snippet of like, oh, I'm really fascinated. Let me know what. Yeah, okay. No, I don't have it because I forgot. Like you tend to you look at something you have collected and you forget what you basically have, and it's collected over the months, and you're like, oh shit, I now remember. After you get disappointed, but anyway, it's just another Corbin I kind of discover I had. And of course, Mobius and stuff. I always wanted to more of this to have, especially in that format. I love this Blueberry because of the format, the epics, the size. It's just that's what you need of Mobius in that kind of size, not in comic books. You just gets lost. The artist gets lost in the comic book size anyway. So
they just restarted a new edition of Mobius stuff in an album size in German, I have to say, but maybe this gives you hope that there will be some English edition out there.
Hopefully.
Well, Dark Horse had their Mobius library, and then all they released was a few odds and ends, and it stopped.
Yeah.
I wonder what the story there is.
And the German edition started right there with Artsack and the Airtight Garage in one book, and
which is what you should start with. That's
yes,
so frustrating not to get that.
yes. But it was always about the copyrights, or his wife don't. I guess something like this, some legal concerns.
Right. I always read there's more than 3 parties involved. So you have Mobius, of course, Mobius party and family members. Then you have the writer, who's the writer?
Jodorowsky for the
Jodorowsky's, yeah. So Jodorowsky himself was a problem. Then his son became a problem because the son doesn't want it. He wanted all from his dad's everything. He wanted to own anything, but he couldn't because Mobius was part of it. And then there was a clash because he wanted to kind of get rid of Mobius' rights and blah, blah, blah. It's such a complicated story with those. And it's how, for us as fans, it's disappointing because, as you can see, for especially English readers, it's not so easy to get hold of because of the publishers who owns the rights. And then because the son was owning the publisher or something like that, it's just a complicated storyline. And Forgerelli said that he looked, the cheapest copy of that is $100, but they sold for 30 and 40 recently on eBay. Catalan publishers, that Jen Simbad of Jen is.
Yeah, after Terrence's recent video where he showed a bunch of Mobius books he found, and I just cannot find those books. All the Corbin stuff I can't find. I've just decided I'm going to collect every heavy metal from those first, 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And I'm pretty well on the way. I can find a lot of them at shops around here. Number 1 may be a trick, but even Terrence got number 1. Terrence, it's funny, up in Canada, some things you can get, or at least in your
He has
city.
a tap on the secret button. He just press it, I want this, and then suddenly, poof, it appears. Look, I just have Mobius.
Those little Mobius trades go for like $150, and it's like, well, maybe I'd rather read the larger heavy metal version.
Right. And that was the thing, like, I never saw those because you're right, they were impossible to find, which is why as soon as that list came out and I saw those, I emailed them right away. It's like, I got to get, because I just figured someone would have jumped on them and just got extremely lucky because you never see those epic collections anywhere. They're so tough to come by because I'm just assuming that people who have them, they're holding on to them till the end of the piece. You know what I mean? They're just not letting those things go.
Right. I definitely not. I remember I was looking for it and how frustrated I used to be because I used to go into that comic mart. And I remember once we went with Dr. Monkeybot was going the same time. And it's like, oh, look what I have. And he picked up blueberries. Like, what the I wanted this. And I'm like, go check that place where I looked. And it's like, of course, there's nothing. Because the minute blueberry appears in there, it's like, poof. Or something with Mobius. It just goes. It's just, But anyway, I'm lucky I have it all. And I would never think of selling it because every single time I kind of like feel like doing that reading, I can go back and just really enjoy myself. Like, so another thing, I always wanted to have those hardcovers they used to produce in English with all collected Mobius stuff from Blueberry. But there used to be like 4 nice hardcovers, but you can't find them anywhere. They were published once and they never seen the light of day anymore afterwards. And he was signed actually by Mobius himself, so of course. Nobody would sell those anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
And just to Gore, considering what's going on down in Texas, we may have to renegotiate the move up to Canada. We're going to have to go back to the negotiating table.
I think not many would be going to.
Maybe you can just ship in Gore by himself in a bubble.
Yeah. 100%. I have a room already made up for him. He's more than welcome to live with us.
Wow, Gore.
Then it's crack time, I guess.
Oh, you mean slab time?
Yeah, slab time. The Dr. Slab. Dr.
Just to tell you,
Mr. Greatworthy.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
If you don't know what we're talking about, hurry over to Terrence's channel, to Comickkrakk, right after this show.
Yeah.
I read very, very little this week because it's been extremely busy work-wise. But one that I just read yesterday, picked up from one of the local comic addict guys who's got a booth at the flea market. He had this. So it's showcase number 64 with the Spectre. And it's I love this cover. This was it was a fun book again. It's as I'm kind of able to tap into some of these early, I think this is like the 5th Silver Age appearance or something like that. The tone is just, I'm always surprised at how different the tone is and how they treat him as a character. It's very, it's kind of tame, you know, in comparison to kind of what you get with the character later on. His kind of relationship and the way that he kind of has a constant dialogue going throughout this book. So one of the usual, it seems to be the usual for Spectre world. There's a guy that owes money to a gangster, and he doesn't want to pay it. He gambled it all away. So his thugs get a hold of him, and they want to dispatch him. And you can see his spirit starting to kind of float away. Jim Corrigan and the Spectre kind of get involved, and as the Spectre's leaving to save the guy who's drowning, he finds that his spirit is out of his body, so he's able to kind of get connected with his body to save him, and then he goes to pull the spirit back. He gets drawn back from just looking at Gore's comment there. He's able to draw the spirit back down to Earth, and the spirit takes over Jim Corrigan's body. Yes, and the Spectre is kind of left hostless. So he starts to, he goes on about his way, and we get some amazing panels like this, where he starts appearing at these jewel thieves to kind of, we get the brilliant dialogue, a face forming around the eyes, now a hand, and it's flying at me, gah, as he gets clipped in the jaw. And then we get some fun panels like this, where the Spectre is growing really big and just stretching and dropping off the thugs at the cop shop there. Really, really fun book. There's all of a sudden these elements that are happening that he has to come back, like he goes to kind of correct an earthquake. There's a tornado. There's trees that are lashing out at him. So this kind of balance has been shifted, and he's starting to lose his energy. He's starting to lose his power and what he deciphers that he needs. I know where I can get help, for just as evil creates its own unique energy, so do good deeds give rise to a good radiation, which keeps the evil energy in check. So he decides to do things like go to visit a Peace Corps worker, doing a good turn for the natives. He goes, moves into the Vietnam War zone as well to gain some good mojo, which I thought was something. So he does all these tasks to kind of strengthen himself so he can battle the spirit that's now taken over Corrigan. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a Spectre book if you didn't get a big battle with some sort of creatures. The art in this is gorgeous. The colors are really, really nice. I was really shocked that he parted with this copy, considering, like, for the price that he gave it to me.
Who was the artist?
Let's go back and see. It probably so story is Gardner Fox. Art is Murphy Anderson.
Ah, nice. Yeah. He's a very good old DC guy.
Right, and it's really, really good and just really, really sharp. But again, it's this tone with the Spectre, because once, of course, everything comes to its natural progression and everything is back to normal after their big battle on various different kind of landscapes. We get our last panel. Jim Corrigan, while he was being taken over by this other ghost, had proposed to this woman, and he's in a pickle now. He's got to break up with her. So the last panel is Spectre sitting in a chair, almost looking like he's got a smoke in his hand. That's for you to figure out. You're on your own on this one. It's just a very odd tone to the whole thing, but still a really fun comic, and especially, again, with all of these kind of panels and just the colors in it, really enjoyable stuff. So I'm hoping I think there was 2 other Spectre issues before this. I think it was issue 60 and 61, and I think 60 might have been his first Silver Age appearance, so I don't know if I'll ever get my hands on that one, even if it's a torn up copy, but I'd love to pick some of those up. The Showcase series, I know a little bit about it, but it's something I'll keep my eyes out for and see if there's any other fun ones. I think there was like Creeper, there was Maniac. I know that Dolphin book, I think, is one that people are kind of chasing after at times, it feels, from Showcase. So yeah, lots of fun. A really, really fun read.
The Spectre is a great artist's comic. right? It just gives the artist so much freedom to do interesting things.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, Comic Strip had a great ideas in here about why wouldn't they? Imagine having them being written like, they have Daredevil with Frank Miller, and then you have, of course, Batman gets all limelight because of, like whatever they do, all that stuff, groundbreaking. I wonder which writer these days could just take somebody like that and just take completely spin out of the characters and then don't gets us introduced to something completely different when it comes to Deadman, for example, like only being a spirit, and then suddenly he just goes in the body and he can't leave, and then if he has like 24 hours to leave, but he can't because otherwise if he doesn't, the spirit of the original person's being dies. That's, for example, that's a story for you guys. Go right. By the way, yeah, it would be lovely to read something like that or different. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As to in the comments, they mention a new Möbius book from the Möbius library from Dark Horse, and it's again it seems to be again a collection of B-sides, strange stuff, and somehow.
Yeah, he says it's interviews with illustrations. Yeah, and it's like Dark Horse. I mean, probably because they have no choice, but they're kicking themselves, or they're tripping up themselves, their sales, because you want to build with some strong books and then build up fans, because no one's seen Mobius in the U.S. except for the Incal for years.
Yeah,
but I'll still buy them. I mean, I bought all the other Mobius.
Yeah, me too.
ones.
Is that true? Go without saying that the Matt Magnus Grendel TV series is going to come out. Is that true? Wow.
I've heard it. Is it a rumor or is it a definitely they've started filming kind of thing?
No, I think it's official. I think it's official announcement. Yep, Grendel TV show.
Wow. That could be just about anything, really.
Yeah, you can go each side of whatever crazy.
Is it definitely live action or animation or?
From what I remember hearing, I'm pretty sure it was live action.
Okay.
So you see our Mr. Spec guy is already knowing exactly where to look. So he's going to look for another Grendel number, whatever first appearance. And he's like, look, I slapped it again. I made it.
Cash in. You got to cash in while you're still alive. Otherwise, your books are worth 5 pence a piece.
What
and
about
then you can't have the
funds
Esquire at the end of your name.
What I really... Sorry to spoil your investments, but what I really don't understand about the slabs, but it's so obvious, I don't think it's not even worthy to mention, but you put them in a plastic case, and some guys and ladies put them on the wall to the sunlight, open to sunlight. Yeah, you can keep them there, and in some months in strong sunlight, it's crisp, it's dark brown, and you have this 9.8 there on the case. I mean, it's a joke, or
100%. I totally agree. I mean, ultimately, like let's just say, I think that the whole slabbing thing is absolute nonsense. But the thing is, that's the guarantee that then I don't have to have an argument with some knucklehead online of what the grade is. I can go and here's the grade. It's a 9.0 or whatever the heck it is, and just sell that stuff. Again, like as I've said before, and just to kind of say it again, the only reason I'm doing it is to sell them. Like I have zero interest in having a collection. I can understand the draw of it. I totally get it. But the only reason is so I can get these books out the door and sell those things,
And if you get that magic 9.8, you get so much more money.
It's unreal. It's really ridiculous. Yeah, the magic 9.8 is exactly right.
But you see how people swear, I have a slab thingy video, and then they open up and it's 9.6, and they almost wanted to smash that book in the fucking video. I don't have money anymore. It's like, what the hell? Anyway, it's a good fun to watch sometimes. Like, oh, look at you, dude. You just missed 5 points. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, back to comics. So I did this video about this guy, Jose Munoz, 2 days ago or so. And he really is one of my favorites. And I got great comments, lots of intelligent comics, I'm really not worthy of my of the comment section sometimes, because I said it for I guess the zillionth time that he is the main inspiration for Frank Miller and so on, and they disagreed, and for good reasons, because there's a lot of artists that work in that fashion, but I mean, Jose Antonio Munoz is just one of his kind, in my opinion. And so I went and read this one here. I acquired this a while ago, but since I'm not into Argentinian folk music too much, I don't know anything about this Carlos Gardel. He's a tango singer of tangos pieces. And I've watched some YouTube clips with him. I mean, he has a fantastic voice, but it's still not my kind of, just not the music I brought up with. It's the team of Sampaio writing the stuff here, and Munoz drawing it with his very unique style. Very wild, chaotic, and experimental, and so on. And they did this biography about this, somehow national hero of the Argentinians, obviously. I mean, he's maybe the Frank Sinatra of Argentina would be even too less to say about him, obviously. So he's some kind of national myth, and not too much stuff is known about his life. And they did a biography, nevertheless, starting with a talk show here, where all the experts talk about this phenomenon, Carlos Gardel, and what he meant for the nation, and was he gay or not, and all these very important questions. But obviously, coming to the more deeper facts, how this guy here, who had relations to some gangsters, to some conservative politicians who, I mean, it's Argentina in the 20s and 30s, so they really killed their opponents. I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow, it
looks amazing, and I, like you, would have thought that Miller was influenced by this or by this man's work.
I got a commentary by, I guess it was Modit Pa, who informed me and the other comic fans of that it was actually more Jeff Darrow and Black Kiss from Chaikin that was, at least according to Frank Miller, the main inspiration for Sin City. But I don't know. Especially since Alex Sinner, the book that or the series about this private investigator is named Alex Sinner. I thought it's an obvious hint that Sin City has to do something with him. And but anyhow, there are lots. There was lots of to and fro in the comment section about who is it, Eduardo Risso, or lots of name dropping, and I can who's that other? There are a lot of name dropping, and I can see everywhere his influences.
How far back does Eduardo Rizzo go? Because I'm only familiar with his U.S. work, which would have come after Sin City.
But Eduardo Rizzo is a long time around, and I haven't checked it. Somebody wrote that he had done work before Sin City, so maybe. And this Carlos Gardel book here, by the way, is one of the later stuff here by this and you can see this by the picture in the back.
Is Munoz still active or still alive?
Yeah, this is from 2010, and I guess he commented on one of my videos. This
wow.
my highest praise that I ever got on my channel. That was I guess I walked after that. I walked a week around with a smile on my face.
Yes.
And they always incorporate themselves, or often incorporate themselves into the story. And here we have just him. There.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can see Munoz.
The old man with the glasses?
Yeah, the old man with the glasses. And he says, that he can understand Carlos Gardel, that he never has founded a family because he as well did so because he wants to do his art. So, and family and art, being an artist doesn't go too well with each other, something along that line. So, and it is, the whole book is about, how much do you have to sacrifice when you want to be that kind of an artist? I mean, it's an odd choice to publish this book here about an Argentinian singer who is absolutely not famous. Nobody knows him over here in Germany, and do such a very, very nice book of that guy. And even me, being this big Munoz fan, was a bit afraid of being not so interested about the subject. But it's really a nice book. And last word about the Alex Sinner stuff. I mean, I recommended it and praised the IDW books that came. The Europe Comics is from IDW, I guess. Yeah, IDW Euro Comics line. They published some Alex Sinner comics, and I never seen these IDW books, but just since I love Alex Sinner, the story here, I just can't think that this is bad. But I don't know, was it Alucard? No, I guess Michele Ferrara, who wrote that they really changed the story while translating the story. They thought of some different ending with changing the story in a way, omitting some pages, and some other crime they did to that poor story. I mean, that's a bit crazy. So
that's very presumptive of a translator to change the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So take my recommendation with some grain of salt, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was pretty much a Jose Munoz week for me.
While I was watching and listening to that video, I've got a soft cover. It's like the best of crime comics, and they had Alex Sinner chapter in there. So as I was watching and listening to you, I was flipping through it and seeing it in person. Like, it's a name that I've always been familiar with, because that Sinner storyline specifically, I think there was even floppies, like single issues of it too, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have any, but it's great looking stuff. Seeing it on the page and just you relating it to that Comickkrakk artist and stuff, and just that kind of style, it sort of borders on this kind of grotesque, which I always love. You know, it's polished, but in a different kind of way, right? Like it has a very, very cool look. So
it's drawn like he used a rotten razor to draw it. That was a quote from Michele Ferrara in one of these clever comments. I wished I could come up with these comparisons, but it's really it really looks like he uses everything that he can scratch. And there are some or at least 2 videos with him drawing, and one of these videos where you can watch the artist and just enjoy the process.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my favorite videos, I love seeing them drawing their characters in just bits and pieces.
I guess it's back to Sleepy.
Yes.
Should I activate
my overhead?
Yeah.
So I didn't know whether I would get to these or not, but since Terrence just read a Spectre, I thought I'd show the specters that I read this week. These must have come out, like 8 or 9 years later? And let's see, what's the date here? 1974. And this series in Adventure Comics ran for a little while, I think. I don't know if he later got moved to another book or something, because I thought there was a lot of Spectre by Michael Fleischer. But the great thing about them is the Jim Aparo art. Michael Fleischer is a very odd writer. He's very he's merciless to characters, and he's not sentimental at all, and he gives kind of a nod to the romance and stuff, but really spends almost no time on it. He just wants to do the crime and punish the criminals. So I just basically they're very raw, simple stories, but I found them kind of addictive. So I read 4 of them this week, and in each one the Spectre comes along and just mercilessly kills the bad guys. I think this is the one where someone gets cut by giant scissors.
Jesus.
Because he's a hairdresser. And they can't show gore, of course, so there's just chunk. Yeah. But if I read this in 1974 when I was 12, this would have been pretty creepy. Mm-hmm. And another guy just what's happening to him? I think he turns into a pile of sand. But and this woman who's beautiful, of course, she turns old and dies. But this girl who he's rescued falls in love with Jim Corrigan, who reveals to her, "I'm not alive. We can't have love because I'm just a ghost."
Uh-oh.
And throughout the rest of these issues, so this was 432. Throughout the rest of these issues, she plays a role, wanting somehow for them to have a relationship. But Michael Fleischer just does it in passing because he's not interested in the romance. Mm-hmm. But it is the trigger for the next story. There's this, what do you call it? The guy who does a seance and talks to the dead, a fake seance kind of guy. Mm-hmm. He calls himself the Swami in this book, but he's just a seance guy who's really a con man. And amongst his rubes is the woman who's in love with Jim Corrigan / the Spectre. What's her name now? I'm forgetting her name. Gwendolyn. She's a really rich woman. And so she tells this guy that she'll pay him anything. She tells the Swami she'll pay him anything to cure Jim Corrigan of being a ghost so that they can have a relationship. Mm-hmm. So he's totally ripping her off. But just look at this artwork. I mean, in this sort of toss away 1970s DC comic, Jim Aparo, I feel like, was at his best on these mystery comics. I know he's most famous for his Batman run, but I feel like he just was putting his heart as an artist into this work. So they plan to just kill Jim Corrigan because they don't believe that he's a ghost and all of that. So basically, he then comes along and he has ghosts kill one of the Swami's sidekicks. He's kind of drowning in the grave there. I forgot how he kills the Swami. Anyway. And then, once again, they talk about we can't have a relationship. I'm a ghost. Oh, Jim, he's gone. Oh, here's the Swami. He turns the Swami into glass, like his glass ball, and then it falls over and crashes.
Looks like the writer likes to have the consequences for the actions. Usually one guy's with scissors because he's a hairdresser now, and the guy is doing spiritual things and puts them in the glass. It's kind of like harsh.
Yeah, I've got to think about what my punishment would be. Probably buried under a pile of comics.
Could be.
Or turned into a comic book that someone slaps.
Right, turned into a comic book, so you split apart.
Thus shatter the vile ambitions of all evil men. That is the way of the Spectre. The Spectre's interesting because, like we said, there's kind of a taboo about messing around with religion too much. So he's this dead guy, and they don't mention here much about the fact that he works for God. But I know in other comics he's like the hand of vengeance for God. But that's a tricky area, at least in the United States, to get into too deep.
And as you're showing there, like ruthless vengeance too, which is also what makes it so strange reading these earlier stuff where he's really this, family-friendly kind of character. You can also get all these reprinted in a later, it's called Wrath of Spectre. I think it was a 4-issue series, and I think it had Neil Adams covers on it. But you can get all of these reprinted in kind
this
of
era,
like
the Jim Aparo ones.
Yeah, all of the really kind of what was deemed as like the really uber violent Spectre stuff.
Yeah, it seems like in the 1970s, in some of these, at least these ones, and maybe in like Jonah Hex, which was also written by Michael Fleischer, they got away with some very brutal stuff under the Comics Code Authority. There's the Comics Code Authority. I love this cover. So this one is about a maker of mannequins who makes magical mannequins that kill people.
Oh, lovely.
And the interesting thing here, it's hard to tell, but this is Frank Thorne pencils with Jim Aparo inks, which is a very unusual combination.
Yeah.
And this one was particularly creepy. Anyway, of course the guy at the end gets, I believe, turned into a mannequin. Can't remember.
It looks such a beautiful art.
Into a mannequin. Yeah, it's beautiful art. I'm sorry I'm flipping through it so quickly because I have so many different issues here. The art on these is great. And like I said, the stories are always very simple. Here's the woman who loves him, Gwen, shows up again.
All those Gwens, they attached to never let go. Eh?
Somehow, I forget why Gwen actually had followed him somewhere, and she went to visit the mannequin maker who said he could help her get Jim's love. So then she shows up at his apartment, but she's actually a living mannequin now. And she goes to chop him, but he's just a ghost, so it goes right through him. And then he, through his infinite number of powers, just magically makes her cleaver chop the mannequin up.
Oh my.
But in this picture, when you look at it at first, it's not clear you're seeing a mannequin being chopped up.
Yeah.
Again, this would have really traumatized me when I was 12. Of course, current 12-year-olds, I guess, aren't very sensitive, but all I ever got to see was
they would say it's funny.
Frankenstein versus Abbott and Costello or something was my level of horror at that age. Yeah, so I think he what does she do to? He turns him into a mannequin, and then he gets accidentally his parts chopped up, and they melt all the mannequins, including him.
Oh wow!
So he melts.
Jeez. Wow, you don't do bad things, otherwise Spectre will take you away and chop you to parts. Eh?
I mean, there's no conflict in terms of the action, because the Spectre has unlimited powers. He can do anything. God's on his
Which
side.
is kind of in the way boring to write, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's no other, like who will go? What, the God maybe? Then you can write a story about him and fighting God, like Daddy and Son issue, I told you to do this for me. I was like, no, I'm fed up, I'm tired, like almost like Lucifer in a way. So
so I'm finding, as a reader, these oddly compelling and consistently unsatisfying.
I think it's art is what would drive me to get those comic books. The art is absolutely fantastic.
But like this one with the mannequins, it reminded me a little bit. I guess I'm skipping ahead, but it reminded me a little bit of reading the Junji Ito books, the few that I've read. And I love this cover, which is also by Jim Aparo. But inside this one is Ernie Colin doing the pencils and Jim Aparo doing the inks. But it also looks really incredible.
Yeah.
Let's see. What was the plot of this one? Oh, this guy hypnotizes people and turns them into suicide bombers, essentially.
Oof.
But they go to banks and say, I will
Open a bank
blow
account.
myself up if you don't give me all the money. Like, here's a guy doing that at a bank.
Jesus.
But before that, he hypnotizes his henchmen who've helped him kidnap people, including, of course, Gwen, the girlfriend or the non-girlfriend of the Spectre. But after they've done his bidding, he has them kill themselves by jumping into a tank of barracudas.
Wow.
I don't know if barracudas would really eat you to the bone that quickly, but anyway.
In comics, they do.
Yeah.
And so we get a series of things with these human bombs, as they're calling them. And there's Gwen as a human bomb. And
wow, she's everywhere. Yeah.
She's in every issue.
She's a stalker of the Spectre.
Well, she, in a way, is the potential way to make the Spectre have something more than just I magically kill everybody.
Yeah. She's the thorn in the, or she's the thorn in your ass when you want to do something.
Right. And the artists have fun with the whole hypnotism kind of imagery. And then he kills off the guy by having him get fed to crocodiles.
Oh, lovely.
I guess like he must have had crocodiles in his evil lair also, along with the barracudas. And he's hypnotized, and that causes him to jump into the crocodiles. So that's my... in a way, it sounds like Terrence's maybe have been more creative than these, though these are much grimmer. Not Terrence's plural, but Terrence's one.
I really love those adventure ones, like seeing them again. I haven't read them for a long time. I'd love to read them again because, I mean, part of the appeal. And then, of course, in like the late 80s, that series in the late 80s is phenomenal. But there's something about that, you know what I mean? Taking that kind of just vengeance and just getting it on the page is something to see, right?
The single-mindedness of it is almost impressive in itself. I haven't read this one yet, but it looks good. And a weird thing this one has on the inside is this story. They say a script they found from the Golden Age that they found in their files.
Oh.
And in 1974, found the script and are having a different artist do each chapter.
Wow.
So the first chapter is drawn by Dick Dillon, and then there's another chapter which looks pretty amazing that's drawn by Howard Chaykin.
Oh my.
And I guess it will continue in future issues. And it'll be interesting to look at this and then look at Grant Morrison's Seven Soldiers of Victory book that he did and see if there's some influence. But this Howard Chaykin stuff, I don't know, did he ink it too? I guess he did. It's a very different style, of course, than what we know of Howard Chaykin, but it looks really good. In its kind of mock Golden Age style. Yeah. So anyway, these are really fun finds.
Yeah, definitely. Looks stunning.
For those of us with cheap access to comic book stores or comic dealers with cheap.
We're talking the lucky ones there at the bottom, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's me. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Someday you'll get to go back to the London Comic Mart, and we'll all be jealous of you again.
Yeah. So I finally finished this Sandminster Volume 5 of the Games of You, and I'm kind of sad. It went from grim to grim, to be honest. Nothing really nothing to cheer me up, especially when you have action scenes like these, where the storm has happened and all the building where all the Barbie and Wanda was there basically went into crumbles. So that was like, and Wanda became more and more my favorite character. So we find out basically stories about Barbie and her dream world, and then we have an explanation basically to why and who it actually is. That just a bit of an art to show it to you. And then there's explanation about the cuckoo, and actually it was kind of freaky, to be honest. not like that, but it's just she's her only child, and she gets into this cuckoo land, and of course she goes into to meet the actual cuckoo, and the cuckoo is basically one of her. It's basically herself in the child's form, or her imagination is, and how imagination could have get you into all sorts of trouble. It seems to be, because she proved that whatever she was, because she had over powerful imagination when she was growing up. So all these creatures we were familiar with in the storyline were actual her toys, which was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then what consequences afterwards when Sandman got involved, that's when really sad moments were. I mean, I really enjoyed the parts we wanted them more and more, because you kind of like, you have this guy who is struggling being a man and he wanted to be a female. And he did everything in his power to basically go through the meds and all that stuff. And she has a very good heart. And she was trying to save this lady because this huge storm happens, and seems to be because it was involved with her. And I really like it. I wonder what's that actually meaning of that writing is. Is it still saying whatever they were thinking? It's the place of the, what's it, thorns that they call it. But anyways, I was curious. They couldn't explain really much. But one of her supposed helpers were betraying her, and she got basically abducted by her cuckoo, and the cuckoo was explaining everything. And that Thessaly she's really mean. And you find out a little bit background of her, who, like, she's been very that she's very old, and she never tells them how old she is. And the most funniest, like when she has a conversation with Sandman, she's almost like an unhappy child talking to whoever, Sandman. I don't care what you think. And it's like, I can end you. I know who you are. Blah blah blah. And why are you coming here? Because I didn't give you permission. And that's how the Sandman world should work. You're supposed to get permission from a Sandman to get into the world of living, because all those 3 girls went to help Barbie in the first place. But then there's the consequences, and then Barbie has to make this horrible decision, and it seems to be Cuckoo escaped. So I wonder if the Cuckoo actually has any consequences afterwards, because if the powers will be what Cuckoo was explaining in the story, it would be kind of crazy, because you can actually roll lots of stories with that character. But the end, after I was reading this, and I was a bit confused, and I was thinking, because basically the page before that, the consequences happens, Barbie makes a decision, and then we jump into this scene where she's in the bathroom wearing all this ghetto, and I was like thinking, well, oh no, don't tell me, because you see that crash of the building, and it's like, I was thinking somehow Wanda will be able to survive that, and that she's doing this, show up at a funeral as a kind of a joke, or like pretend that she's dying and they found some other body instead. I really was hoping for that, but of course I didn't get that. And then that she went into funeral, her family was absolutely disgusting. They still couldn't understand that how the man can be pretending to be a female, because they were, once again, very religious. It's another subject we always keep on talking about. But yeah, and she goes into, just to say a couple last words, and then there's how she went in to buy the comic book for him, and then she says, like, and there was a big greasy guy behind the counter who seemed really amused that I was like a female asking for this comic book. He said it wasn't very collectible and stuff like that. And then I'd never seen a girl with such a small boobs coming into the shop, in comic book shop, which was fantastic to actually read that. And then she wrote down Wanda instead of the Alvin on his gravestone. So very sad, but it's emotionally great to, it's very good imagination. At parts, I actually felt like there was some moments while we were going through the woods, I really felt like it's Bone scenes, like the Bone series I was reading, because you have all those imaginary characters and all this, castles and stuff like that, the creatures. It just really felt like, and there's some parts of the conversations as well where, let's say, similar to that, and lots of sad moments because all those helpers were basically brutally murdered, one slashed and the one missing, and then he's hanging. The monkey was hanging in the woods. It's just like there's other creatures they have to not even mention about. But Sandman part was like he comes in there. It's like, okay, we had an agreement. She's like, what kind of agreement? I don't understand this. And then he takes all that imaginary world into himself, kind of thing, because he was a creator. So yeah, really good. I think I'm getting, as I say, with each volume, I kind of sense I know why people are really liking this, because it's just, if you continue with it, I mean, it's kind of it's only 5 or 6 issues of the storyline, to be honest, but the way he's renders it is kind of, you have to be patient to get a reward, and if you do, it does really gets you rewarded by, like explaining really a story, what's happening behind it, and how everything came to be. So yeah, very good. Fantastic. But I was sad for Wanda. So, I mean, there was a good moment at the end, to be honest. Wanda got her kind of, in a way, wish, where she suddenly sees this, or she thinks she sees it, Wanda, as an actual girl, and there's Death there having a conversation. It's like, just say goodbye to her, and then she thinks that actually Wanda properly said goodbye to her, because they were, sorry. No, it's okay. I'll show that, because I think it's quite a nice page, that one. Yeah, absolutely. As I say, absolutely fantastic stuff. So yeah, glad to finish it. I definitely want to go into get of course volume 6 now to read next and see how it goes. But I flipped through a couple of volumes because I was kind of curious. Honestly, art is for me going downwards, not going like really good way. It's just the first volume is most fascinating artwork, and I actually really, really like it. But afterwards, it's just really kind of like, I guess it's been, they had to change artists anyway. It would have been nice to have the same kind of artists going through the whole series. I think it would give even more pizzazz to the storyline generally. I think would be more, I mean, it's already fantastic to read, but I mean, it would be even greater to actually own it in whatever format you want to own this story.
I seem to remember a lot of great art in like the one-shot stories that would come every once in a while.
But it's just
like P. Craig Russell, or I don't know if you've gotten to that part.
No, I haven't yet. No, it's just I don't remember the main artist's name, to be honest. Now I'm blinking, of course, because I'm under pressure answering the question. I never remember the names anyway. But it's honest. Sean McManus became I really like the way he's drawn Wanda, Barbie, and Wanda. All the female characters, they look fantastic. Even though it was actually quite interesting how this story generally was all about the dreams and Barbie and the main character, but honestly, in the background, he was telling a story of hardship of a man who's trying to just be what he felt he's supposed to be, and that society never accepted him, the family never accepted him. He had to run away, and still kind of like sad way die, but kind of like small reward to what he was, not what she or he was. So yeah, it's interesting how he managed to tap that both things together into writing. So really good, fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Tim mentions that Charles Vess is coming up, and Michael Allred and P. Craig Russell.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's good.
So they brought in good people, especially for those like individual issues sometimes.
Good, very good.
I remember not liking the art in the Game of You at the time, but when you were showing it on the screen, I was liking it a lot more than I remembered.
Yeah,
it grows on you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
the character. There was a change of the artist anyway in a couple of issues, but the main story is drawn by that Sean McManus. So he's like, it's just the characters itself. They are just, I think, very well rich, and then in this, how she went into that town where the Wanda is all from, and then you have this awkward scenes when they're having conversation in the diner, and they offering her a pie, a blueberry pie and a coffee, and then these two dudes, it's like, what the hell is that? Seeing the Barbie, and the guy says, don't reckon I know, but I can sit on my face anytime she wants to. So that's kind of conversations. I don't know how much you can show the scene of the the diners in America. I guess they wouldn't. I'm not sure exactly if they are in existence anymore. To be honest, in America, I know it's like not many of them left, isn't it? Or are they still in the full force?
They're not in full force. They're still around, but I'd say they're fading.
I think for us from Europe who hasn't been in America, I think diner is the first place people kind of want to go and sit down and have the famous blueberry or lime key pie or whatever it is.
Right. You would have to hunt more. It would be, you'd have to work a little harder to find one now.
Yeah.
At least in the areas I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
I laughed when someone saying, come sit in my face or whatever. I feel like back in the 70s and 80s, people were saying that all the time. I haven't heard that in a long time. Although maybe it's my age. Maybe young people.
Well, anyway, it's because it wasn't purposely said that, because the town where she's from is very close-minded people, all very religious, and they don't accept anybody who's strange. Because the first I know, you're a friend of Alvin's. Oh, he's that weird dude. That's how they were explaining to her, and she's like, she understood exactly why he was escaping that place, because at the end of the day, how do you live yourself, and then, just it's sad. I really wanted her to survive, because she was one of my favorite now, and then she had such a good heart, and then she tried to save somebody, but she wasn't aware what's happening basically, and that face on the wall, they keep on telling her some things, and she's like, oh, you're annoying me, but then unfortunately consequences happened, and then she's the biggest consequence what happened to whatever the story was going on, because every other member survived.
No, I have some earworm. There was a punk song by the Dwarves, I guess. You can sit on my face. Sit on my face.
It was a very popular expression.
Yeah. But they really meant it literally.
No, people did mean it literally.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Members of the opposite sex.
Where's Terrence? Terrence is gone already.
Yeah, he flunked out. Actually, I wanted to ask if...
Now you're all three of you, Terrence, not the...
No.
I have not reread it again, but I do have my copy just over here. I could go grab it.
Yeah, maybe just each of us can name his favorite story, and
there you go.
Let me go.
We are over with. Yeah. Okay.
One moment, he says.
Oh, Terrence is all right. Oh.
I know.
Since Damien has this
under a pile of lot of books.
Yeah, okay. Who wants to start with his favorite story of now?
I can take
if there is one.
I'll start. Yeah, I'll start.
Mm-hmm.
I really got a kick out of this Steve McQueen story. I really enjoyed this first story here. I remember Damien saying about this cover, like figuring out this cover in the future as female. There was almost like a little bit of a, if we want to talk about theme, I don't say that I know anything, but it just seems like there might have been these things that you're seeing during the pandemic that you never would have expected. Taking that idea in mind, that was definitely the Steve McQueen story for me. First of all, it's beautifully illustrated. I really love the art in this. And I love the kind of portrayal of Steve McQueen as almost this kind of pathetic, washed up kind of loser. And I mean, look at this detail on the car. It's just extraordinary stuff here, like really, really gorgeous. And, just hanging out at home, watching Seinfeld, smoking dope. I just really got a kick out of this story, and I think the whole thing was silent, if I'm remembering right, other than kind of the texts and things going on. But I just found this.
There's a little dialogue on the second to last page.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah. As he's kind of getting around a strip torn off of him, and even the cleaning lady not even paying him any mind, And again, I think it's all kind of impacted by. And look at the fabric, the drapery on that bed sheets there. That's unreal. It's all kind of heightened by the fact that it's this stereotypical badass Steve McQueen. So I really got a kick out of that one. That's definitely one that stood out to me, even on flipping through it again a week or so ago. Yeah. So, I mean, that would be one that stood out to me.
Why do you think it was called The Mobbing Birds?
Yeah, man. No clue. Sorry. No idea. That's getting into it a little more that I have no idea. You know, and I find with stuff like this, like the Now and anthology specifically, you know, I've said it before about kind of the art kind of angle with some of these that are definitely more kind of maybe, I don't know, highbrow, even though it's a lowbrow kind of comic. Some of that stuff I find is a little too much for me to take, as far as like everything is some sort of commentary on the state of our world and that sort of nonsense. I find hard to digest sometimes, to be honest. So I'm sure there's something there for sure. What it is, I don't know. I haven't the faintest idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know about the mobbing birds, but I guess if there really is a theme based on the cover, the future is female, which I frankly don't think there is.
No.
You could say, you know, Steve McQueen used to be a symbol of macho masculinity, and now he's just a sad, lonely, pathetic wreck. Beautifully drawn.
But I guess Tim Lane, who drew that, is more on the search for the American myth. So I guess he picked Steve McQueen because he is the impersonation of America for him, and this loose and dry combination of visual quotes, and it's not really a story, if we are honest. It's just a
vignette, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a vignette, a combination of bits and pieces, and it adds up to just a sketch of a story, you could say, and which is a nice contradiction to the amount of detail and time Tim Lane spent with each with the artwork. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
That's kind of a generous way of reading it. To say it's, you know, to imply it's sort of a purposeful contradiction of the. I don't know.
According to Google, mopping birds is when birds protecting against predator. They flock in one way and fly in the same way to protect their prey from the prey.
But how that applies to this story about Steve. One lone guy.
In a way, it is his kind of situation. He's hunted down by these guys. I don't know.
Yeah, flocking to protect.
This story for me was a perfect example of my readings. So this issue number 9 of Now, I'd only read 2 others, but I think I had read number 1 and maybe number 4 or 5, so I had the impression Now was getting better from this issue. But when I reread it, I may have now reread it almost 3 times. It seemed an emptier vessel. So, like, this Steve McQueen story really impressed me the first time and impressed me less as I reread it. But I still enjoy it. It's kind of, it has a kooky sense of humor, in a sense, to take Steve McQueen and put him in these situations. And fantastic art. I love the drawings of, like, the wrinkles on the sheet on his bed and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of visual thought is put into this.
I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from all of the Now stuff. Just visually, I find it so impressive, like seeing these different styles of art and seeing these kind of different creators tackling these stories. With some of this stuff, it's always, for me, the story is always secondary. The story, I always kind of, it's way at the back of my mind, unless there's something that really jumps out. For me, it's all about, like, the visuals, you know. Even in this Go For This No More or Less Alive by Steve, same kind of thing. Like, I love the design and the look of it and everything.
Is that the one about the mole?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, what the story was at this point, I couldn't even tell you. Nothing has stuck with me story-wise, but visually it's super appealing. And I think we've talked about it too before, Damien, you and me on some chats years ago. Just this idea of, it would be great to get some of these artists kind of hooked up with a writer. And again, I don't want to disparage their writing. Writing is not easy. Art is not easy. None of it is easy. I do neither. Right. So I'm not meant to be disparaging whatsoever. It's just, it would be great to see them paired up with someone who has a better kind of grasp on some storytelling. And again, I'm probably coming at that from an angle of, what did I talk about today? I talked about a Dan Spector comic, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's this idea of whatever writing is going to appeal to you, and taking that somewhere. But it is a really good outlet to see these creators kind of just have the ability to flex a little bit, right? So it's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if they also come from an aesthetic and maybe almost a social group within the artistic world that prefers an elusive story that's not on the nose and that's more hinted at stuff, which, I mean, I think that's a great kind of thing to do if you don't feel you have to do it all the time. And I may be reading too much into it.
No, you're completely right. I think...
So they may be in a bit of a trap where this kind of thing that can work really well, they have to always do. And sometimes it just falls flat and sometimes it works. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just this thing. I was, for some years, I haven't read so many comics, but I was very interested in modern art and went to each exhibition that there was, and almost manic and satisfied with. When I liked one painting, it was great. But after some time, I got tired of this shtick of the art is built in the eye of the beholder. You have to all the storylessness, this
like the viewer brings with them their prejudices, and that makes the art or something.
Sorry?
The viewer brings with them their whole context and prejudices. And
the art is just an invitation for your own thoughts about it. So I looked really for art that tells me something, that tells stories. And then I got back to that's really a tangent now, but I was interested in Renaissance painting because you have lots of stuff there. And then I got back to the comics because they gave me the stories, and such. But I still like stories that are a bit open, especially when they are just some pages long and it doesn't hurt my time too much.
Right.
So,
that's probably fits well with the one that I guess I would pick as my favorite. It's hard to pick one favorite. What was it called though? I'm not even sure what it was called. T. Ramunian, about the
that would be my pick as well.
I forget if he was Indian or Pakistan. I think it was India. Who his claim to fame is he was a great organizer of ping pong tournaments, and it starts seeming very silly, but it just becomes more and more interesting and impressive. And then as what is it, bombing raids in World War II come along, I think that's what it is. His reaction to it. But then I almost felt like, because of this aesthetic, that he was telling too much of a story, and so he had to just kind of end it. So I felt, especially on rereading, I felt very disappointed with the way the story kind of just fizzled at the end. He hired this guy to build him new tables. I think he and the guy might be the only people left in town, the carpenter.
Yeah, everybody
so I
else
guess it's kind of
waited and said, "You guys are
something.
crazy for staying." Yeah.
But I don't know. I just felt like I needed something more. So anyway, but it was a very charming story, very nice artwork, nice colors, and it did have a bit of a story and a character, but it was not one you would find in a normal comic book, right? You would never imagined you would get a story about a 1940s person in India organizing ping pong tournaments. So that was great.
And he was a real person.
Okay.
I looked up on Wikipedia. He really was the founder, father figure for Indian table tennis.
Wow.
So it's
it's interesting. The author of it sounds like a typical East Coast American name, Jacob Weinstein. So I don't know how he knew about this, if it was research or if he spent time in India or is a ping pong enthusiast. But it was a really cool story.
Yeah, and I really liked this Ligne Claire, Hergé sort of style.
It was definitely within the Hergé tradition, without being purely imitative or anything.
Are so great, and they always kind of stand out to me, and I'm looking forward to see kind of what he does on a bigger scape. Yeah, those pages too, Damien. Really nice stuff. Really kind of bold kind of graphics or whatever, even if the story is kind of whatever. Again, it's not that the stories always stick with you, but I'm curious to see what he does when he gets this graphic novel released and kind of has a longer, because I think in some of the other ones that I've seen, it's generally just a one page. Out of the few issues that I have, I think this is the longest story, if I'm not mistaken, worth in the...
I feel like he might have had a longer story in that one that I read digitally when you weren't here, Terrence. I talked about when I read digitally. I'm trying to remember what number that was, but maybe that was number 4.
Right. And there you go. And just the use of, these things like filling up the panel with the space, and just a very unique style, very unique looking style here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really enjoy that style.
Yeah.
It definitely, this one, if I'm remembering, felt very random as a read.
Right. Oh, look, Earl Grey's got something.
Here's a little something from Kush.
The mighty Kush, yeah.
This was just his solo show in a way. He's always doing stuff with. To be honest with you, I can't remember the story at all. It was a long, surreal ride. Something with monsters in it, and something with skew perspectives and whatever. But yeah,
that is beautiful to look at, though.
That's great. And there's the story or the sequence, the serialization of the pictures wasn't bad, but it's just this kind of stuff that you can't remember afterwards because it's just too much.
Well, and I think it also stands out on like a chat like ours, because the stuff that we focus on and the stuff we end up talking about, we're very story centric for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think sometimes what I even forget for myself is when I was getting into a lot of these indie books, when I was in the 90s and things, story was important. There were some great stories, but honestly, it is art. It is comics. There's nothing wrong with just enjoying a book because the visuals are just stunning, even if there isn't any sort of through line story-wise, and I think that sometimes even I forget that when I'm visiting the comics, especially in the context of we're going to be talking about these on Sunday. So there's sometimes you put that extra pressure on yourself to let's think it more about the story and what's there. But sometimes, I just read a book because the comics are goddamn fun, because the cartooning is fun, because the visuals are just enjoyable. And who gives a shit about the story, so there's almost some sort of freedom in that as well, too, of like, fuck the story. I just want some beautiful art because it's a visual medium that just has to have words and stuff with it, right? So it's this balance, because you don't always want to do a... and again, I think it's because oftentimes with our chats, we are really going in depth with like the stories, and especially when it's part of a bigger overall story. And talking about how they're representing these kind of tales for us. But I think part of the fun with some of these is that you just get absorbed in this art, even the art that doesn't necessarily work for me. Like this would be one that the style just doesn't appeal to me as much. It's not that it's bad, just
even though the message of that story I really liked, because there's this guy who makes a fool out of himself to get this job, and
The one with the duck and the cow costume?
Yeah. You think for the longest time he really works for that ice
shop or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right, he's just a volunteer worker, uninvited volunteer worker.
Yeah.
But I both completely agree with you, Terrence, and then I feel sad because to me the real addictiveness of comics is the art draws me into the story and the story draws me into the art, so I get both. And I have a deeper appreciation of art because it's part of a story than, I enjoy going to a museum and looking at the pictures, but I get an extra level of enjoyment from comics. So this is always going to be a little bit of a sidebar, or I shouldn't say this as a whole because there are some in here that have more of a story. But that stuff without a story is always going to be a little bit of a sidebar for me personally.
No, totally, and I would agree with that. And I just think of even when I discovered the criminal stuff, at first it was more the story that drew me in because I didn't really like Sean Phillips' art back then. It wasn't something that appealed to me, but as I got further into the story, I was enjoying the story so goddamn much that I grew to appreciate the art a little more. But I would say that early on, it was the stories that drew me into that stuff. And then some stuff like this, or some of the Fantagraphics, or some of the underground and small press and indie publications and stuff, it's the art that draws me in. And if there's a story there, that's a bonus for sure. But I think my expectations are a little different with some of it, But I agree.
I guess there's always a shifting balance, right? Because even those Jim Aparo Spectre stories, I'm more enjoying the art than I am the story. But without the story at all, I think I would not enjoy the art as much. And the art helps me appreciate the limited story that Michael Fleischer gives us better. So it's an interesting balance all the time. I think that, at least for someone like me, this is very daunting because the styles change so radically, so quickly, and I'm not sure if there's a story there or not as I plunge into each one. So it's just a harder read. The one story that I liked even, and we didn't get to hear, Milan, well, you said your choice would have been the
table
ping
tennis
pong
story
one too.
Yeah.
But this one called, I forgot what it was called.
Yeah.
That I made a video about. I hated the art and I didn't understand the story at all, but because of the rereading, I started reading it out loud to myself and found that it was very amusing just to hear the words out loud. So I made that video where I experimented reading the story out loud. Or it's not a story, whatever the heck it is. It's not quite a poem because as it starts getting going as a poem, every once in a while he just sort of undoes the poetic rhythm of it. Or maybe that's a poetic choice too. But after I read it out loud and showed images on a video, I started liking the art, which I had hated at first. So I guess the words, even though it wasn't a story, words got me. Reading the words out loud got me into appreciating the art.
Yeah,
actually, I thought this is a perfect story.
Story?
Yeah, story. I mean, in the way that you like some crazy modern theater where all the actors are babbling around, and in the end, someone walks into the sunset here, and you have the rhythm. It's an abstract story.
Yeah.
Let's say it, and it fits that you have this nursery rhyme with it. This
that introduces it. Yeah, the nursery rhyme.
This poem flowing through. Actually, this was my contender of being the best.
Oh, it was my contender also.
Yeah. Okay. Along with the
Richard Sala.
Theo Ellsworth. No. Richard Sala. That was just, I guess, if these stories by Richard Sala here in the end, it's just stuff for the completionist, I guess. I mean, if it wasn't Richard Sala, and they gave Fantagraphics the opportunity to give him a little arbitrary because he passed away last year or so.
Well, I guess within the context of this being Richard Sala's, pre-professional work, I kind of really enjoyed it. It was kind of implying story, like you're getting a snippet of something that's part of a larger story, and and that worked for me. It almost felt like something I might have seen in a fanzine back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I guess I have a particular fondness for the 70s fanzines I used to read. So,
okay,
I was also in the camp, just to put a period on that. I was also in the camp that I really liked this art quite a bit. Chris Wright, I thought it was really good because of its kind of unusual quality and the shaky line and everything, this kind of thing. Yeah, it was another contender for me too as one of my favorites. Absolutely.
It has that outsider art, crazy person kind of vibe.
Absolutely. Well, and this busy, like the use of a page, this busy kind of work on the page, again, filling up the spaces and cutting into the page, almost, distorting the figures and everything.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was great. Yeah.
And,
almost
and
like an etching, a wood etching,
Yeah.
Like
and I wasn't joking when I said that this is really a story for me. I mean, it's making fun of storytelling in a way. And it's a parody of storytelling, but doing our own story as well. This sounds more intellectual than I actually want to sound.
Read it again to figure out the story part. I pictured in my head a kind of crazy poet at some open mic poetry reading coming up on stage with a big bag in his hand. And as he's reading the poem, pulling out all these images out of his bag or something.
And it helped me, a German book author for children books, Ottfried Preußler. He made a series around this guy, Räuber Hotzenplotz, a thief called Hotzenplotz, and he was in the illustrations he was drawn like these main guys there in the story. So it was a bit of a nostalgic feeling how this Räuber Hotzenplotz is shredded into pieces during the story. And yeah, I guess this was our Eternal Now that we did right there. Now it's back to Terence, if I am not completely mistaken.
Yeah, sure. I don't have much else, so I'll just be kind of very brief on these last two things. Extremely brief, because I don't want to tread too much territory. I did get the Dracula book at my comic shop by the office. And I, like I was saying before in my video the other day, as great as it was to see the visuals on the screen, man, it's gorgeous to see in person. I really, really dig this style an awful lot. I could see what Damien was saying when he was talking about it, the use of kind of the blacks in there, and on screen it does look it does read as more kind of this negative space, but when you see it in person, there is still a little bit of a texture to some of these things, and there is some of this space where it is his kind of cape and things, where you're seeing some of the reds and you're seeing some of the lines. I don't know if it's translating too much on screen, but I really, really enjoyed this. I could honestly read a few more volumes of just this Dracula character and just this take in this style. And again, it's Breccia is not a creator that I have a lot of experience with, so it's all very new to me. I just have that Paramus. And again, it just feels like this was, I think, my favorite story out of them. Number 4 was I Was Legend. And the use of just, I don't know, man, like, again, the way the characters are taking up the page and the facial expressions, and it almost has a, I don't know. I don't want to just start comparing. That's not really fair. It just has a really nice energy to the whole thing. And again, this kind of grotesqueness and this panel right here. And I appreciate all the descriptions underneath too, to give it a little more context. These women mourning over I believe it was children in unidentified graves, rather, not necessarily children. It does say many of the disappeared were young, and in some countries bodies would be adopted and mourned. That idea and the way that it's kind of portrayed on that page, I think was really, really great. So I enjoyed this hell of a lot.
It's funny, before I was thinking of like Sergio Aragonés and stuff, but now as I'm looking at it with you, I'm thinking about Bruegel and Bosch and things like
Definitely,
that.
yeah.
Well, even some like Ralph Steadman is what I was.
Oh yeah,
say.
definitely Ralph Steadman.
His kind of over, you know.
But those panels where there's just so many grotesque people poured into one, it's like those,
and not apologetic. You know, it's like, I want to distort all these images. So I mean, that's my brief word on that. And then the other thing that I read, just to, again, a couple of quick notes. One of the new comics journals. This one was. Wow, that was fast. It was talked about on Twitter. I think it was. I don't know if it was Ryan. I'm pretty sure it was the Domino Comics talking about it as well too. That there's an article in here about Charles Schulz and his end of his life, rather, Peanut strips with the rerun character. This was, a lot of people praised this article as this was the article that had them re-examine this kind of this later era Peanuts. And it's a really, really good write-up. And just talking about Charles Schulz, and this rerun is kind of he's an artist as well too, but he really kind of marches to his own drum, you know, even going to a gallery, he's off on his own and just constantly talking about how his art isn't appreciated, but he's really just strong as far as this is what my vision is, and I'm going to kind of create it regardless of what people think about it. Really interesting. And then another nice little surprise. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not a nice surprise. There's an obit here as well too for sorry, just let me find the pages here. I don't know much of this era of Comics Journal. The stuff that I had the most experience with is the earlier kind of stuff that I'm more collecting. But there's a underground cartoonist, James Osborne, dies at 58, and there's just a talk about his life and the comics that he was creating. And the guy that I do, I was fortunate enough to appear on a couple of the live streams where we did these. It was God Waffle Noise Pancakes. This guy Grux, who also goes by a bunch of different names, including Bonnie Banks. So Bonnie Banks is interviewed in here because he was the one that actually discovered Osborne's body. They were sharing a place together, and he came home and discovered him. So he was kind of friends with him later in his life, near the end there, and just talking about, because I had a brief little conversation with him on Twitter about it. I didn't want to talk too much about it. It doesn't seem like the happiest thing, but he was just talking about what a character he was and just the stuff that he brought to his comics and his vision for underground comics and pushing things. And again, it's this idea of these people that live on the borders of art and kind of what they're able to do because they really aren't in it for anything else other than the enjoyment of the art. Yeah, of course, he did some things where he was able to make some money with his art, but for the most part, he was just wanting to present this. He just wanted to present his art the way he wanted to present it, and fuck what anybody thought of it. So that freedom in creativity, I thought, was pretty interesting. So it was a nice little piece in that magazine to have a read of, and be able to talk to the guy himself too, that kind of knew him at the end of his life, was interesting.
Question: how is the best way to collect Peanuts series?
Going to the Fantagraphics stuff, you know, it is daunting for sure because there's so much at this point, but I think that's a really good way. I have very, very few. I have one. It's the collection of Sunday strips right from the beginning, because I really love his style right at the beginning, where they were even more child looking, and but they're still, you know, that's still talking like adults, and the philosophizing I think is fantastic. But honestly, reading that article, I want to dive into some of the 2000 era stuff and see if I can find collections of that to check out. I'll probably check it out at the library to see what's there.
They're not cheap. I got a lot of the hardbacks, Fantagraphic hardbacks from the library. So at one point, maybe when my daughter was 6 or 7 at bedtime, we'd read some pages of those, and we started from whenever they began in the 50s and got through the early 60s before she lost interest. So we read a lot of those volumes, but I think they would have been like $40 a piece or $50 a piece. So it was good to get them from the library.
So they are like what? Usually the hardcovers produced, or is it like floppies? So like not floppies, but you mean like trade paperbacks?
I think they have them in both versions.
Okay. Cool.
The trades aren't that cheap either.
Oh shit!
If I remember correctly, if we're talking about the Fantagraphics goes chronologically, every strip from the beginning to the end.
I see.
There are lots. I think there are lots of themed kind of.
Books I wouldn't mind the early stuff.
There's so much soft cover stuff there that was published previously to the Fantagraphics stuff, though. And again, it's depending on your Comic Smart. Maybe when that starts up again, it might be worth looking there too, just for these, because there were so many companies that were printing the strips in various formats, even just to dip your toes in. Those are well worth checking. Those are pretty fun. But again, of course, the Fantagraphics, because it's chronological and their recreations of it and are pristine and all this kind of stuff, there's absolutely that. Howler Mouse is saying that he found some at an outlet store for like $8 a pop. So I mean, it really depends on where you're able to hunt. Because your London Comic Smart might have something there.
Right, but I would check your library first. If you feel like really getting a lot of peanuts, because I've been tempted to buy those Fantagraphics editions, but it's a big commitment to money.
It's a huge.
I'm guessing that Milan has them already.
No. I would complete my Dick Tracy. It's a bit unrelated, but sort of in my brain. It's an IDW collection. These Dick Tracy ones maybe, and then the Peanuts. I don't know.
I mean, one of my favorite Christmas movies is Peanuts, Christmas movie short. So this is like it's almost religiously now. I have even but it's Soul Shakers for Christmas with Peanuts characters on it. So I am more than I would like to, but I never get it in collected. No, I got in any other format. So I would love to get in, because I am a fan of having. The minute I saw those Calvin and Hobbes collected editions, like slipcase, that was the first thing I always wanted. And thankfully, my mom, my husband was so keen, because it's like, okay, I have this on the wish list. Please, can you get me? And it's like, oh my god, this is pricey. It's like, doesn't matter. I want this. This is for me, So it's always there, and I love it. I take it out, and it's just beautiful to look at, and it's so funny, hilarious, annoying Peanuts on all the characters. It's just, those. Little conversations they have is just fantastic. Especially maybe start teaching that, showing that to my son more, because he's more into books lately because of his preschool. So I want to kind of get into slowly with that kind of stuff. So
there are some strips. There are some strips that stay with you forever, I guess. I mean, we have some strip here hanging on the floor, just about how Snoopy tricks Charlie Brown to tell him a particularly boring night story, so that Charlie Brown sleeps while reading the stuff to Snoopy, and then after that, Snoopy can watch TV. And this is so, it was funny back then, and it is funny today, and it will be funny in 10 years, I think.
And he just gets these notes with these characters that's honestly just so touching, even when they're talking about the rerun strips and kind of nearing the end of his life when he was writing this stuff. There's just something to it, and again, I know that he comes, well, I don't know anything. I think that he comes from a pretty religious kind of standpoint with some of this stuff, but these touching moments with these characters, that these interactions that they have, so you get these really funny strips, and then all of a sudden you're having these moments that it's unbelievable stuff. It's really, really nice stuff to read.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, I guess.
So now it's my turn.
No, it's
Okay. I go to European comics. I'm reading a lot of this stuff here, Spirou, and in one of these collected editions with 4 or 5 albums in each of them. And yeah, pretty randomly, this is just the last one that I read. Marilyn is not. You can't stop Marilyn. I mean, her name in the German translation is Marilyn, and we see Spirou and Fantasio in between her legs. It's basically some kind of Terminator story with a female Terminator, and for younger readers, so it's not so horrific. And she's a robot here, this Marilyn lady, and she has the ability to influence machines so that they do whatever she wants. And there's you can see this here in the Spirou household, that all the stuff is working against our 2 heroes there. And we have a showdown in the robot factory, and it's just a really nice, straightforward story with that you can read without thinking, that you can really absorb through your eyes, and it's just nicely drawn and funny and in a good way harmless. Whenever I don't feel it's time for the most complicated read, I pick one of these stories here. And there's really a long backstory of these different variations and iterations of Spirou, with the different artists that work on that character and that little universe. It started, not really started, but André Franquin made him famous, and afterwards there was a different guy, and here we have Tom et Jean-Ry. This is actually a creative duo. One is the writer, I guess it's Jean-Ry, and Tom is, by the way, that's a play on Tom and Jerry. So, and read that and continue my way through the Spirou-verse. I never thought I really, it's a bit like with manga. I thought I read almost everything in which comics, but with the exception of mangas and this Franco-Belgian funny stuff, maybe. And yeah, but I changed my mind.
Just the lettering looks so much fun.
Yeah.
As you're flashing the pages, I just see that lettering and I think, oh, I'm going to have a good time reading this.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it's good lettering. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Maybe similar to in Asterix or something.
Is this the way the Fantagraphics collects the editions for Peanuts? Is this the one?
I guess this looks like that.
Is that in a slipcover?
Yes.
You can buy the volumes individually, but maybe they'll sell them together also.
Yeah, I just found something. I was looking to see if it says this one is from 1975 to 1978.
Yeah, so that would be each volume has 2 years in it.
Yeah. Yeah, collects 14 volumes of a complete Peanuts in a handsome slipcase. Yeah. Intros by SNL's Robert Smigel and 30 Rock's Alec Baldwin, which is interesting. Anyway, so yeah, I'm start looking at it to see if this is the ones you guys, because this is kind of like looks nice, exactly like to collect as well. So
well, I don't know, Terrence, what your favorite era is, but mine is the 50s and early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Terrence has left the building for a short while. Come back.
Okay.
His lunch didn't agree with him. No.
Probably.
So
Oh yeah,
is
it
it
is.
my- Oh,
It
sorry,
is
go ahead.
true. Sorry, that is how I went to Fantagraphics page, and that's how they collected them for sure. And
Sorry,
then
I will show.
yeah, and they are all out of stock apparently. About one.
I bet Amazon has them.
Oh yeah, of course Amazon does have everything, isn't it? And the owns are sold sometimes as well. Anyway, yeah, it's cool. Anyway, I know how it look like now. I'm probably gonna keeping an eye on them, like you guys say. Yeah.
Yeah, Lefty Blues is talking about ordering stuff through Fantagraphics, and I have felt not only do they charge you full price, but they charge you postage, and this is in the U.S. So that they're like the most, by far the most expensive way to get them. Better to order them through your LCS than to order them through Fantagraphics.
Even when they have their sales on, I find it still expensive. I've had way more luck doing the same thing, ordering it through my comic shop. Yeah.
Oh, and they once had a sale where if you bought one gift certificate, you'd get another one.
Wow.
But then when I went back to use my second gift certificate, it didn't work.
What?
And they told me, well, wait a few months and then it will work. This was already a few months after I'd bought it. And I, until we just mentioned it, I'd forgotten about that. I never went back to see if the gift certificate would work later.
Gosh,
But
not good.
I think they're not as organized and professional as they seem from looking at their website. Ryan was telling me that the whole business is run out of someone's living room. So anyway.
What? Seriously? Wow. Well, I guess it's at the end of the day, you have availability of the comic books, like whatever books that they produce, which is the most important part. It's just a pity that people wants to go directly and they can't support them this way. So
yeah, that is a thing.
I guess there's some documentary of Fantagraphics, the center around Gary Groth, and so a bit chaotic and yeah.
If you watch the Gary Groth interview on Kayfabe, you can see the space that they're working out of, and it's literally like a house. You know what I mean? So yeah.
But I guess that you can't have a high overhead and produce books for the love of books, I guess. And I greatly appreciate the quality of their hardbacks. It's can't be beat, really.
Do we want to do another round? Are you up for?
It's more up to you than us, to be honest. I think you're the latest one, so maybe you should make decisions.
No, I'm.
If you're awake, I've got more stuff.
I'm not able to sleep anyhow, so.
Oh, okay.
Too much Earl Grey tea.
Yeah.
So let's go another one then.
Okay. Then it's Sleepy. One more.
Could you show my overhead camera?
Oh yeah.
The special stuff.
So you can see right here why I got this comic. It was just for this cover. I love this cover. I love the colors. The title, Mullet Cop.
It's coming into fashion.
Sorry?
It's coming into fashion. If you see a sportsman and they're all fucking wearing mullets nowadays.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is not. It takes place in a future world. They have a map. Let's see. Of their future world, which is basically all civilization is in this mega mall. There's the old city that's just a wasteland. They don't really there's something called a foam bottling plant that is not explained in this issue. I don't see why I need another issue, to tell you the truth. This was a what did it cost me? It cost a lot of money, $7.99. It's very, very thick. It's probably 60 pages or more. And it's from a very small publisher, Scout Publishing. Yeah. My regular shop did not have this. It was when I went looking for other comics at the place that does more small press. But it has this art that is kind of, I don't know, Chris Burnham-ish, maybe Chris Burnham light.
Yeah, too tight for Chris Burnham, no? A bit tighter.
Yeah, and the line is thinner. I don't know. It just reminded me of something else. I can't quite put my mind on it. But this character is a mall cop, and they're fighting these I forget, this punk gang called the Pink Dolls. And there's only parts of the mall that are civilized, and other sections are just wild, controlled by these gangs. And this character gets shot in the face by the Pink Dolls, but they rebuild him, and they've given him he's in the hospital, and his chief of police, of mall police, is telling him that they've rebuilt his face so that the gang won't recognize him. But it's the exact same face, except he now has a mullet. He now has a mullet, so they won't recognize him. And he says, "I'm still a handsome man. You've changed my hair, though. Can you change it back? It just isn't me." But they say it'll give you a second chance to live, unless, of course, you prefer to walk around with a look that will get you killed all over again. So here's where it gets bizarre, because the artist is perfectly fine, but for some reason, he's made the artistic choice to put the mall cop's face never changes. It's the same face on every figure for 60 or 80 pages. Same face, just everywhere. And I guess it's sort of part of the joke.
It's
like
no more
some
joke.
Weird animation, where they were too cheap to ever change the faces.
maybe
But
change
there's
this.
every indication this artist can draw. He draws anything he needs to draw, and it's a one-man show. I should try to remember this guy's name. Tom Lintern. I guess he did everything. It just says created by Tom Lintern, who I've never heard of before, but maybe he's a known quantity. So it's just kind of a gonzo, silly story, kind of making fun of movies that were already making fun of other movies, like RoboCop or something like that. So he gets a team, and they give him a fake identity, running a buffet in the mall with a microwave. His microwave at his restaurant has a supercomputer inside of it that will help him solve crimes. And he has a team of other mall cops who are just like this woman here. And I love they're all just, kind of dumpy, real looking people. This woman had her eyes removed, and she can shoot beams out of her eyes.
Wow.
And then this woman is the other member of his team. He says, "Are you a cyborg too? What type of super cool power do you have, or something?" And they say, "No, she's just Dolores." So it's very funny. And I guess by this repeating of the same face over and over again, it gives it this weird deadpan personality. I don't know. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't quite understand. I felt like I wanted to understand better what the artist was thinking, but I just have to accept. So then there's this game show host who seems to be working with the Pink Dolls. And so it's kind of a death trap where he has to fight his way through them all. And there's an audience watching and all of that. Anyway, it was really fun, and it was just odd, and I love it when I just see something that I've never seen at the comic book store and I pick it up and have a good time. But I don't know if I would want another issue, and I don't know if they really plan to do more issues or that's just a joke. It says episode 1, but it feels like they've done everything they need to do in terms of their spoofs.
Oh, look, change of face. Flip back. There. Help. Yeah, that's a little bit.
Right. His mouth is open.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a different face too.
There you go. You see?
Every once in a while, the face. Thank you. You are more observant than I. But then back to that face.
Yeah.
And she has her same face.
Maybe it's because that operation they forget to put the senses of the like facial expression senses in you.
So he must have done this digitally and spent hours sort of resizing and refitting the same face onto different bodies in different positions.
It's a good way to make sure that you draw the same face and recognizable. People are really afraid when you start to put expression. You change the face and it doesn't don't recognize it. So. But it's part of the style, I think.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, it's a similar aesthetic to Space Riders. If you guys remember that comic, that was just sort of the gonzo out of outer space stuff. Everything there looked more like tattoo art, but so the art style is different, but kind of the aesthetic of just bizarro B-movie kind of stuff. Anyway, so it ends, happy ending. The mall is safe again. And then they give you a tip on microwave cooking at the end. So, fun comic. If this is our last round, maybe I'll just quickly mention that I started a Junji Ito book called Love Sickness. And it's billed as a short story collection. It says there. But so I read the first chapter and thought I'd read a whole short story, and I was going to review it with you guys. But just as we were on the air, I flipped and I saw, the next page continues the story. And then I looked more carefully, and the first story actually is over 200 pages. So it's more like a graphic novel with some extra short stories at the end. But I was loving the art because I remember last time I was a bit not critical of his art, but saying that the figures were kind of pedestrian. But the art style seems different here. And because it's a city covered in fog, he does really interesting things with his line work, which I really enjoyed a lot.
And now I was interested in Censor. That was the book that you shown us.
Yes, that's the first one I read was Censor.
Yeah, and I guess that's an older story of him.
Is it? Oh, okay. I thought it was 2017 or so.
Okay. Yeah. As somebody said, Junji Ito is fine every time, but with the exceptions of Remina and Censor. And since I really dislike Remina,
maybe you won't like Censor either.
Yeah, maybe. So this stopped me a bit from clicking the buy button in Censor.
I have read. I started reading and then unfortunately set aside and meant to get back to. No Longer Human, is that the title?
Yeah.
And the pacing of this reminded me more of that, I suppose. I did have a feeling of it being a little drawn out from my Western perspective. But for the most part, I was really enjoying it. It was very creepy. But I thought I had read a whole short story and I hadn't, so I guess I should read more before I really talk about it.
Okay. So it's Rasa.
Oh. Okay, so continuously, slowly reading my Darwin cookbook. And this is the best. This chapter 4, Gods and the Monsters, is the best representation of Wonder Woman for me in comic books generally. But it's also about Martian Manhunter. It appears in this book like this.
Love that.
And it's the way it's kind of like, or I don't know, actually, or the original story of man. I mean, I kind of have a bare idea, but in this one, it says this guy who is astronomer is somehow using something. It doesn't really explain here, but you just see him lying there, and it's just like apologizing to our Martian, saying, "Oh, we don't have enough time because you scared me so much. I had a heart attack," and he's dying there on the floor. And saying in here, I can't explain you how crazy the world you are in. And then Martian is basically realizing that he's not being able to come back to his world. And also, of course, we were touching the story of Wonder Woman and Superman, and it's just how this is Wonder Woman for me. It's definitely how the Darwin Cook has represented in here, and especially how she having a conversation with Superman and how overtowering she is still on Superman, the most strongest man on the earth. And then you have this Amazonian who's basically giving him shit because he's giving her shit for helping these females in the war-torn country, giving them their own freedom and deciding how they're going to make the punishment. Of course, Superman is not happy that these females decides to just kill them all. But then she said they were oppressors and they gave him a freedom of how to, gave him the judgment, and she says, "There's a door spaceman. Take a hike almost. You should be having there another speech bubble," because that's what basically she's telling. Because she's not
best. That chapter is the best. Sorry to interrupt. I love it so much.
Yeah. It's just a couple of pages, but so lovely. It just explains so quickly of what kind of like understanding what Superman has and who he's working for, or they're supposedly both working for, and then that Superman just has this one square belief in a way, and then that they need to help everybody, not just what they were told to do. Do you know what I mean? So it's a really nice way of just this explaining, and also then we get into that more Martian story in here, where he's this nice panels, which I absolutely love. Like when you watching cartoons and you see his powers of shape-shifting, and the first, and it's like a couple of really obscure characters or cartoon or movies he's watching to be drawn into, and Bugs Bunny is it's funny that he's drawn, and then of course he goes into all sorts of like American Indian. And then he decides to become a detective, which is perfect, which I one of the best characters for me, because I'm a fan of detective stuff. And then the story about this, when he starts actually working. And there's Flash mentioned in here, which kind of was a little bit bizarre because he wasn't really mentioned afterwards in the whole story. But I guess it's just a little hint what's going to happen in the future stories. And then you have him sitting in the cop's car with this one of his like a friends. Really, he's inspector, like not he's detective as well. But basically, the Gotham is completely, what over. Nobody's finding injustice, and he explains that this guy, who he knows, he was working on this case. He has the most obscure way of telling the stories, and then Batman gets involved because there's this sector in the church where they believe in something, and they kidnap this rich guy's kid, and they're trying to basically slaughter him in front of everybody. And then of course the most weakest power, the weakness the Martian Manhunt have is seeing the fire, and it's absolutely frozen. And basically how Batman saved them, but the kid is completely afraid of him and it's like, stay away from me, I don't want you to touch me. And this is the way Batman lives in that era of the comic, which is absolutely fantastic. And next one I will have chapter 5 to read. I'm taking it absolutely slowly for this one because I've read it already. I know exactly what I'll come up with, but every single time I'm rereading it, it just becomes more and more something I want to cherish, even though I was cherishing it before. It's lovely way of telling the stories, to be honest. And then it's the ways animated, or art style, because he has background from animation. It's very fluid, and it's very nice to see. And that earlier in chat we were mentioning Mark Cho, and I think Mark Cho is basically a mantle being bestowed to him by after his death, that he's basically almost trying to get into how the Darwin Cook's drawing style is. I mean, he is very similar to it, but still you can't have the same sense because it's a different person. At the end of the day, person's experience, that's what changes the art style and what you do. That's how you become. So you have your own style into it, but you can see how influenced he was by Darwin Cook because they were friends as well in the time, and they were working together, I think, in some way. So
there's Cook's style, which is wonderful, and then there's also his storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Visually and in words, but the story rolls out in such a magnificent way. I think that's what I love most of all about that.
Yeah.
Final.
And it's whatever they tell, it's the way he tells the story. As I say, it's really easy to get into. It's nice the way he represents the Amazonian and what she's believing in, rather than like the perspective of let's say male perspectives, what she usually was written by. And then it seems to be the right way to present Amazonian who believes that you have to have your own voice, no matter whose gender you are, and it's just beautifully the way she. I would like, honestly, if Wonder Woman would be written like this or represented like this, it would be more. I would be probably more drawn into reading it.
Yes,
I tend to kind of. It's very similar to every single time she's represented, which is kind of boring, to be honest. There's nowhere. It's another character I think needs completely different perspective. But I don't know if she would be as popular to buy, and it seems to be not always popular on the bookshops.
But there are different versions of Wonder Woman. But
I know. I mean, there's
really
there is. You can choose definitely. I like recent one is the Azzarello one, isn't it? Which was something. Because I haven't read it, so I'm not sure if I
somehow recent. It's
the Azzarello stuff was great from New 52. Yeah,
that was definitely great. And I mean,
and then Warren Johnson did it as well. Yes, Wonder Woman series recently. Warren Johnson.
I lost track a bit in the last years. After Azzarello, I really lost interest for the newer. Stuff.
I dived in here and there, and it was so far below the level of the Azzarello run after that. Even the Greg Rucka run, which I had hopes for, was not very exciting.
Well, he's known for Wonder Woman in the earlier stages of the.
But it somehow didn't click as well the second time, maybe. For me.
But I really like the 60s, the swinging 60s Wonder Woman, where she lost her superpowers. Even though I'm quite alone with liking that stuff, but I just like this 60s style. And the beginnings of Wonder Woman is the Golden Age Wonder Woman. There are some really fantastic stories, and the art style is so undergroundy. I mean, it's really fascinating. And when you know about the history of the creator who lived with two women and sort of that all stuff, it makes it even more interesting.
I remember there was a time when I was looking for Wonder Woman comic books, but to pick up as a just to collect some of his stuff. And then there was this issue where Wonder Woman turned into a black female. And I remember I was trying to get it, and then suddenly there were people, I guess the movie came out just before that or something like that. And that comic book went out of like Skywards, out of proportion. You can't even get hold of it. I was just curious because how they tamed the story into what is supposed to be happening in there. So I wanted to collect that. I remember that clearly.
I didn't know about that one. I knew about Lois. There's an issue where Lois Lane becomes black for a.
Maybe that's the one I'm confusing with. Maybe I don't know. It's just like something about that one as well. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's like,
Terrence is correct. I don't know.
I got nothing else. I've got nothing else. That's all I read.
He's just been stroking his slabs all week and not reading anything.
It's true.
Oh, you're gonna get shit for this video now.
By next week, we'll be over it.
Then I wrap it up. I read some manga again.
Naughty boy.
But it's this one here. I thought, hey, there's really no risk in buying Helsing because they actually said that they won't reprint the stuff here, and since it's my investor's choice in buying Berserk and selling the stuff, even though it is maybe reprinted, it's not so clear. These books won't be reprinted, and it's really a safe bet if you want to read it. Buy it and sell it for the double price some months later, because it's literally it's almost out of stock on everywhere you can look, and so that was I sort of panicked and thought, hey, Helsing, it looked interesting.
I've seen the name, but I know nothing about it.
I heard good stuff about it, so why not try it? And it has fantastic. I mean, this is the third of these volumes, so I really read something, or I flipped through it, because reading, it's maybe the wrong term for skimming through these fantastic pages of really glorious art. Even though, let me tell you what it's all about. Helsing, like you can guess, it's a play on Victor Van Helsing, the old vampire fighter. And let's see if I can find him here somewhere. I guess this belongs to our Alucard guy. And Alucard, which means Dracula written backwards, or Alucard. And Alucard is a part of a British Protestant anti-vampire order and a secret agency, and called Helsing, and they fight vampires. Why they should fight vampires? Because the Nazis, they around 2000 or so, when this book came out, they are still a thing, Nazis, and so there's a Waffen-SS that creates vampires and attacks London for a second time. And this time with vampirized soldiers. And so the Helsing Order has to fight them, but these vampires only can be fought with vampires. And our strongest guy there is Alucard. And Alucard just fights Nazi vampires. So we have these different factions, and there's a third faction actually, and that are some kind of Ku Klux Klan led by the Vatican. It rhymes actually. So these Catholics fight the Protestants, and the Protestants and the Catholics fight the Nazi vampires. And there's a lot of fighting going on, and with fantastic pages, just with sound words. I mean, from an art book standpoint, I totally can dig the story. And I haven't found an opinion about the book here, and it's a good reason why I put this at the bottom of my list, secretly hoping that I don't have to present it today. Somehow it's really it's really interesting and it's fascinating, but the second volume in particular was just a huge fight, and they kill each other, but these vampires can regenerate their body parts like in seconds. And you have really do this move here, pull through the body. I hope you can see what he does there. Yeah, he pulls through longs through the body and puts his heart out, I guess. Also,
it looks like he found a lot of spaghetti inside the body.
Yeah. And do you know why the spaghetti? The Catholic main guy, he always talks in some Irish, or what the translators thought to be Irish. I don't know the first thing, but
Dinna cry, boogeyman.
Yeah. It goes all the time. Maybe it's a bit annoying. Can't actually say anything about it. But he wounded himself with the tip of the. Oh man. Yeah.
Sorry. The stake.
Yeah, maybe. No, not really the stake, because of Jesus. One of the things.
Crucifix?
No.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you don't have to be sorry if I don't know the words. It's, but he turns into a crown of thorns, basically, and so this fighter, but it's for me right now with the first reading of Helsing, it's just the art, which is really fascinating and interesting. And I could show you lots and lots of pages. It has the usual in depicting the characters, it has the usual manga style.
Right.
And this is maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but you see, for the most part, flying body parts and so on. And I'm not so keen on the Nazis thing for the reasons.
Right.
Not because you can fool around with Nazis as much as you want to, but the creator here, Kota Hirano, he leaves a bit the impression that there's still something cool about them. So some pop artsy stuff that he can exploit, and that's not. I don't know. There's a lot of I don't know about the series of books, and but I don't panic. I bought them just for the investment purposes, and reading is just a nice side effect. And
well, and it's cool artwork to look at,
Yeah, absolutely.
You can be at the museum while you look at it.
Yeah,
the story
maybe
story time.
Yeah.
Talking about manga, anybody know about this? Blade of the Immortal?
Yeah.
Is it any good to read?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, no,
Actually,
don't show. I don't have anything to show.
Sorry. Yeah, actually, that's very, very good. I have that, but it has a really interesting story about this samurai fighter who can't be killed, and I'm not so deep into that book because that's really a dense reading, more kind of a dense reading, but with that one, I'm pretty determined to keep on reading and buying these beautiful books. I mean, this is Dark Horse as well, and you can't say what.
The minute you mentioned Dark Horse, I'm like, ooh, I'm interested.
Yeah. You can say whatever you want about Helsing but Helsing and Berserk and the Blade of the Immortal, they are beautiful, made, oversized books and perfect binding and stuff. So. And you can always sell them when you have problems with them. Literally, they put them on eBay and for some just a bit above cover price, and you will have them.
I have, as I say, I mentioned before, but I never read Berserk, but I watched that prolonged thing on YouTube I found, but I couldn't stop looking away. I was like, what the hell is going on with me?
I kept Berserk Volume 1 for good reasons, because I was fascinated by this out there over-the-topness of it all, of the whole story. But what really was a problem for me was that I couldn't relate with the characters, not at all. The way they are drawn, they are just these typical, stereotypical boy group characters. Just the idea of the whole storyline, it's that it's set in the medieval ages.
It is,
and so it's just.
Maybe you should watch.
And you have these boys that are just too beautiful, too schematic in a way, and there is even some kind of princess there with huge eyes, and then it was really gone. Yeah, and these characters try to sell you really harsh story, as you said, with mutilations and even The main character is abused by some other guy from his camp, one soldier, and it's actually really a well-written story part, but somehow I didn't felt it because.
But if you know the further in the storyline where they takes and how this blade of things work and what he does to it and what happens to him himself, and then oh my god, there's so much craziness happens afterwards, and I think that craziness would probably sell it for you even more if you read it. I mean, I've watched it, some of it. I'm not sure if I've watched full story of Berserk, because I don't think it is full story, but they produce in that movie format. Terence probably knows more because his son has read Berserk throughout, yes, isn't he? So yeah, but as far as where I went to that, it was absolutely crazy. I mean, it does get to that levels of uncomfortableness with people and all that stuff, but then where he takes that story afterwards later is crazy, to be honest. And it's fascinating to me what it happened after.
I read almost the whole the Golden Age storyline, which seems to be everyone's fans' favorite. And yeah, I read it, but
Okay, not convinced.
no, I absolutely agree that the stuff is fascinating and interesting and so on, but not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read one volume of Berserk, and I guess maybe I should read more, but I felt fine I felt like I had the idea. I'm told, oh no, it gets way more or whatever, but I don't feel like
the original anime series is fantastic because it goes through this nice arc, because you get so many different pieces, and then where that original anime ends off with like the God Hand and stuff and these crazy, like it just goes nuts. And when I originally saw it, it was so hard at the time to find any of the manga. The original, I still have it. I have an issue #1 in manga style, but it's in Japanese because that's the only thing I could find. I just wanted to see what the original was like, just so I could flip through the pages. And then they started reprinting the English ones. But that original series, I was hooked, man. And I love the way the art goes, because there's this real piece in there where all of a sudden it becomes this kind of drama. It becomes really dramatic, but then it gets so incredibly dark and these demon kind of gods at the end, and it's just, it's something else. I haven't read very much. My son has read way more than I have of the series, because he has most of the books now, not all of them, but and the art in the book is incredible.
Did your son see the anime first or read the manga first?
He read the books first. Yeah, he read the books first. I had traded away the anime because I had heard that they were going to do another edition with a bunch of special features. So stupid me, I traded it away. And then that version that came out that was re-released, it was actually different animation. It was a different series. So I ended up getting it, and I was really disappointed. But now those original ones, they're long gone, which I'm so bummed about because I'd love to see them again. But he hasn't seen the original anime. He's seen some of the newer editions of it. He said the same thing. He was just so about them. He didn't think that they were that great. For him, the book is a lot better, from what I remember him saying.
Okay.
Well, soon we'll get spec manga videos from Earl Grey. Then you'll finally get the viewership you deserve.
I don't think he has to complain about viewership.
And always
channel.
A lot of people throw the word spec in their titles. Just
I know, it's like spec.
Earl doesn't really need to do that.
And telling bad things that I really disliked it, but I bought it, and then I could sell it for the triple amount of money. Yeah.
I suggest you invest in this right now.
Yeah.
We'll do a hot 10 manga. We'll have some graphics. We'll get some cool music, and we'll we'll get it up here.
Okay, leave it on that note and call it a day. And we had fantastic comments throughout. Lots of comments in the end that Earl, you have to read Berserk. Yeah, I know, and I have to watch animes more. I know, but lots of really fine stuff. Ragamuffin, Tolga Berg, Mike, Scott Connor, funny as always. Mike Hitzkin, and who else?
We had
62 Lefty Blues.
For the Love of Comics was here for a while.
Yeah, Michele Ferrara, and scroll. Andy's Comic Bude from Germany, and who I will do a video with together, and Mind the Comics, and Howler Mouse, and the others were Gore Vidal, Jared Osborne.
Maybe are your people, so to speak.
Your fan base.
I just think Olga Burke mentioning in the comments there that they just bought Phoenix by Osamu Tezuka, and that's one that I'm curious about reading, that Phoenix. I've seen the cover but I've never read it. Curious about that one.
Okay. So bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for a great show.